The hidden gaps inside most woodworking plans. Somewhere between step 3 and step 7, most woodworking projects quietly fall apart. Not because the wood is bad, not because the tools are wrong, but because something critical was never explained in the first place. And if you've ever stood in your garage staring at a half-built project thinking, "What did I miss?" You're not alone. Most people assume the problem is skill. They think, maybe I cut something wrong. Maybe I measured wrong. Maybe I'm just not experienced enough yet. So they go back, double-check everything, start over, and somehow end up in the exact same place. A project that looked simple on paper suddenly feels confusing, inconsistent, and harder than it should be. You follow the diagram. You cut the pieces. You try to assemble, and then things stop lining up. A joint doesn't close properly. A panel sits slightly off. A measurement that looked fine on paper creates a gap in real life. So you adjust. You trim a little here, force something into place there. Maybe even redo a piece completely. And slowly, what started as a clean, exciting build turns into a series of small corrections. Until eventually, you either finish something that doesn't quite match what you imagined, or you stop altogether. And here's the frustrating part. From the outside, the plan looked complete. It had drawings. It had steps. It even had measurements. So what went wrong? At first glance, it seems like woodworking is about following instructions. Cut this. Attach that. Repeat. But that's only the surface. Because most plans don't actually show you how the structure comes together. They show you the what, but skip over the how. You'll see a diagram of a finished piece, but not the exact sequence needed to build it without problems. You'll see measurements, but not how those measurements interact once real materials, tolerances, and alignment come into play. You'll see steps, but often the hardest part, the transition between those steps, is either rushed or completely missing. It's like being handed a map with landmarks, but no roads connecting them. And that's where things start to break down. Because woodworking isn't just about parts. It's about order. It's about knowing which piece needs to be perfectly square before the next one is attached. It's about understanding how one small inaccuracy compounds across multiple steps. And most importantly, it's about clarity during the moments where things could go wrong. Those moments are where real plans separate themselves from incomplete ones. But in many cases, those are exactly the parts that get skipped. Not intentionally, but because they're harder to explain. It's easy to show a finished chair. It's much harder to show every micro decision that makes that chair come together cleanly. So what you end up with is something that looks like a plan, but behaves more like a rough guide. And that difference matters more than most people realize. Because when the structure isn't clear, every step becomes a guess. And when you're guessing, you're not building with confidence. You're building with hesitation. That hesitation shows up in small ways. Second guessing a cut. Rereading the same step multiple times. Pausing before committing to glue or screws. And over time, that hesitation turns into friction. The project slows down. Mistakes feel more likely, and the whole experience becomes less enjoyable. That's why so many projects get stuck halfway. Not because people lack ability, but because the path forward stops being obvious. Now here's the turning point. The real issue isn't that woodworking is difficult. It's that most plans aren't fully resolved before they reach you. They look finished, but they haven't been tested in the same way you're trying to use them. And that changes everything. Because a plan that hasn't been fully worked through in a real build will always leave gaps. Small ones, maybe, but enough to create confusion at the exact moment you need clarity. On the other hand, when a plan has been fully built, step by step, before you ever see it, those gaps tend to disappear. Not because the project becomes easier, but because the uncertainty is removed. You're no longer guessing how parts come together. You're following a path that's already been walked. That doesn't mean every build becomes perfect. Wood still moves. Tools still vary. Mistakes can still happen. But the difference is in how predictable the process feels. Instead of constantly reacting to problems, you start anticipating the structure behind each step. And that shift changes how you approach projects entirely. You spend less time troubleshooting and more time actually building. Less time correcting mistakes and more time seeing progress. Less time wondering if you're doing it right and more time knowing what comes next. Because in the end, woodworking isn't just about creating something physical. It's about reducing uncertainty. And the more clarity you have going in, the smoother everything becomes from start to finish. If you want a deeper breakdown of how complete plans are structured and what to look for before you start your next project, there's a practical guide linked in the description. It walks through the exact elements that remove these hidden gaps. And if this kind of breakdown helps you see things differently, you can subscribe for more content like this. That's where real progress starts, not just in what you build, but in how you understand the process behind it.